I've been involved, most of my adult life in a part of the commercialism of athletics than probably any man in America. I started it all, and if anyone read my bio, you'll find me described as a lot of different things. However some people perceive me, that's their opinion. However some people want to interpret me, that's their opinion. The only thing I can say to you students is the most important thing in an individual's life is to know who you're speaking about and what you're speaking on. So I was able to get to the level I am because of being fortuitous and not being afraid to speak my mind and not be afraid to, tell you my opinions. I started with Nike a long time ago. The reason I started there is because they are #1 in the world in commercialism, especially commercialism in the athletic field, and that's where we're at today. That's why you're scoring a deal today. You want to know where the money goes, how it got there, and where did it all start. I started it. I started it not by doing illegal things. I started with the complete cooperation of an unbelievable company that was in infancy at that time, and an owner who had a brilliant mind and proved to be brilliant, who allowed people to do what they were capable of doing without interfering. That was Phil Knight. Taking it from there, the first thing I ever did was sign college coaches to money. So when you're talking about and bitching and moaning about how much you're paying coaches today, it all started a long time ago with me. The first coaches to be signed and given money from a commercial entity was me and individual college coaches at Nike in 1977, 1978. And those numbers were 5,000 and 10,000 maximum. And that's where it's risen, from 5,000, 10,000 to 5 million. That's what you're interested in. That's where you're going. I'm just going to give you a quick byline of what's happened in the commercialization of college sports. Allowing me to do that, allowing Nike to do that, we were all under the umbrella and the watchful eyes of what? The universities, the presidents, the athletic directors, and certainly the coaches. Nothing was ever done clandestine. Every contract ever signed was signed by a lawyer from Nike and a lawyer from the universities. So we understand that. Two parties made a business deal. They agreed on it. No one thought of anything other than monetizing their value for their school and Nike monetizing their value to sell their product. That was the main game here, just so we understand that. Okay? So I went forward with that. We progressed in a way that was unprecedented. A $25 million company in 1977, well, you know where the hell they are. They're second, third, the largest apparel group in the whole world today. But to show you the growth of that, really the power changed and the university sold their souls in 1989 when the University of Miami as a whole group signed a contract with me. I never signed contracts. I did the deals. I turned them over to Mr. Knight and to the lawyers. So I never had this happen. I told you what your value was. They accepted or they didn't come. I mean, it was my opinion what your value was. They signed the contract. The only difference was in 1989 to 1977. 1977, I signed it with the college coach. I assumed the athletic director knew that. That's all I cared about. The kids wore the shoes. That's really all I cared about. That's all Phil cared about. In 1989, I got a call. They called me from the University of Miami. The athletic director, through a lawyer in Washington, D.C., who's turned out to be a wonderful friend, told me that they wanted to be wearing all the Nike product. So that day, history changed. That's why you're protesting today, because of that day. Because we signed a whole school deal. We gave them extra hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we owned every sport and every athlete in that school, we being Nike. It then progressed. Again, why did it progress? Because this time, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the university had to sign off. Anything to do with all school, I would assume, with all of the power that they have, they would take part in something worth that much money to encompass the whole school where you basically sold your rights to this outside entity. So I did that. We did that. I was part of that. The growth went on. I don't want to bore you with all that. I'm going to fast forward you since we're limited on time. Commercialism started a long time ago. It started only with the help of the universities. So all the outside entities you see are co-conspirators in your minds, the other people here, to a owning of property, which are students and athletes, and the selling of this property by that university. Just so we understand, if some of you are here under the opinion that athletes are getting too much or getting too little, it has nothing to do with what you're thinking. It has nothing to do with what you're thinking. Your cause should be one thing. Why is tuition going up? And why is money spent discretionally towards what they deem to be what they should do and pay these people. That's where my vision comes. I say to you, this is run by an outfit in Indiana called the NCAA. The NCAA, if you pay attention to anything, you will eliminate all bias and opinion. And you say to yourself, well, who okays or takes or reaps the most out of this? It all goes back to this organization called the NCAA. And I say to you, you can cut through all the BS, you can cut all the blame you want to sow. You go ask the question of the people in Indianapolis. How did it ever get to a point of this happening where you're building stadiums, because that's what you're bitching about here, you're paying coaches, because that's what you're bitching about here, you're doing all the things, I use the word bitching in a nice way, don't be offended by that. I only say it to draw your attention, because that's the gripe of today. That's the gripe. But the universities have allowed this to happen. Now, what has happened in today's thing, in this group called the NCAA, they control the money. They control the book, the rule book, I call it. They control it under a cartel vision of being empowered to dictate what is done with the monies being paid out and the money being spent on all these things without any control or yes or no on anything. The question you have to ask when you leave here today and you ask your professors is, what do they do and who is the president? What is the president's role in anything that they do, since he is the boss of everything? He does nothing. They do nothing. They actually do nothing. If you're under the pretense that the NCAA is a governing body for the good or bad of all individuals and all equality in college athletics today, you're wrong. I don't say this being mean-spirited. I say this factually. They have a phrase called student athletes. Andrew, the difference between a student athlete, I want to ask you a question here, okay? Do they identify you as a student journalist? Do they identify you as a student medical student? Do they identify you as a student gardener? No. They introduce the student athlete as a student athlete for one reason: to put in the mindset of the American public and everybody connected to it that this entity is a student. And he, therefore, is going to be told this, and he's a student because why? Because all athletes in the NCAA umbrella are what? They're all equal. You look at their rule book. One athlete in football and one athlete in lacrosse are deemed equal in their rule book. They say everything is equal. That's why you can't pay. Everybody gets the same thing. Well, they're not right. Why are all athletes not the same? Nothing to do with revenue sharing sports, ladies and gentlemen. It's that we all know, or you should know before you start fighting all the facts of the battle, is what? There are students on partial scholarship, 1/4 scholarship, half scholarship, whole scholarship, no scholarship. I don't know if you have a lacrosse team or a tennis team, I don't know if these kids get any scholarship. But you are now in the Pac-10, which is now the Pac-12, which they just sold for $90 billion. And they're going to televise every sport that you have at Cal. This guy, Larry Scott's a genius. These people are right. They are television producers. That's who these commissioners are. And what they just did to you, and the University of Texas is better than anybody, Notre Dame is the best of all because they did it before anybody else. What they did, they had the bright idea that we're going to sell all our sports into one big package, and we're going to make millions and millions of dollars, which they are going to do. But does anybody tell me where the equality is when you, playing lacrosse, aren't getting anything? You're not getting anything. You see, a student athlete, when they do, is one thing that you're not required to do. He goes and practices football for 20 hours a week or 40. He has spring football, fall football, morning football, afternoon football, irregulated football and basketball. Otherwise, you go conditioned in the off season or you don't make the team. See, the problem that no one understands here, the problem that those people in Indiana won't tell you is that athlete is an athlete. He goes to school here, so we're assuming he's a student also. We want him to be a student, but also there are special admits to student athletes. There are kids who get into Cal that maybe wouldn't get into Cal. And I understand that that should happen across the board. A student athlete doesn't necessarily take all the classes he wants to take. He's put in classes that are ridiculous, that he'll never use again. You, as a student architect, will go pick yours. Your mother and dad paid money. And you, as a student journalist, go pick yours. Why do you pick yours? You want to take a class that takes you to educate you, so God willingly, in 4 or 5 years, you can get a job. Athletes don't have that choice. The majority of the ones, when you see this fictitious thing up here that, hi, I'm Jimmy Joe Williams, and I play lacrosse, and I'm not going to be a professional. They're basically making fun of all of the basketball players on that particular weekend who's earning all the money to pay for everyone's scholarship and pay the salaries for everybody in Indianapolis, just so we understand this. You see, the NCAA owns the NCAA basketball tournament. They sold it for $12 or $13 billion over the course of how many years to CBS, and now Fox, and now somebody else. They monetize their thing. They own that. Those NCAA. But what they don't tell you is they don't own football. No. Football is run by some of the smartest human beings in the world. They're called commissioners. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing in college athletics and amateur athletics, and therefore it pertains back to Cal, are the commissioners of your league. I just told you 10 minutes ago, Larry Scott's got you a long, big deal. You're going to make more money because you had a commissioner come in from the LPGA. He was commissioned to that. He's in entertainment. What is important today? Entertainment. What do you see? Do you know there's 59 networks on TV now? 59. When I was a child, there were 3 or 4 or 5 at the most. That means progress. That means there's a reality show 59 times a night, every night, 7 days a week. Football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey is reality sports. That's all it is. It plays out in front of you. You win, you lose, you clap, you go home crying. They bought you, all the athletes, for a price. And these guys sold you, and those guys in Indianapolis too. Why do I say football? You see, they don't own football. So even though Jimmy Joe Williams wants to thank, or not thank, all those kids who give all the money to the basketball tournament away to fund supposedly other scholarships for the other kids who play, the football bowl series gives nothing. They have commissioners, and they have leagues, and they have surpluses of money. In fact, HBO just did a story, very fortuitous. If you go to Brian Noble tonight, they just did a story on the bowl games. The bowl games are the biggest disgrace in amateur sports. Why? Why? Not because the games aren't compelling, not because the kids don't practice hard, not because the fans don't like them. Why? Because individual promoters on the backs of athletes are making obscene amounts of money. Forget the coach of your team, who you want to blame or not blame for getting paid $5 million. What would you say if I told you a commissioner or a guy who ran the Sugar Bowl got paid $600,000 last year to run the Sugar Bowl? Oh, let me tell you, there's no secret to running the Sugar Bowl. The state of Louisiana gives them the stadium and $2 million. Also, there's a television contract to BCS that the Sugar Bowl is part of the Bowl Fiesta or Bowl Championship Series, so there's a built-in monetary value to that bowl already. The teams are picked. There's only a few teams, as you know. Some are bitching and moaning about all this now. As some of these states' teams got left out. That's what they're griping about. But you're almost programmed to go in. The guys who don't lose any games, they go to the championship game. The other guys go. It's all on pyramid. So I don't know what the hell this guy does that is president of the Sugar Bowl. But you pay him. You do. You do. You do, California. You all do. You allow them to exist. No one bitches and moans. For what? The sanctity of the bowl games? Mr. Megacy knows what I'm talking about. When he played in college ball, they probably had 4 or 5 bowl games, and it was an honor. Today there's 34 bowl games. Schools lose money going to bowl games. You are forced to buy tickets to go to bowl games. Tell Berkeley, unless they played in the Humanitarian Bowl, whatever bowl they played on in San Francisco. pays and has to guarantee the sponsors of those bowls in those cities a certain amount of tickets. Connecticut lost $2 million last year going to the Fiesta Bowl. There's no one from Connecticut Falls. It's not a big university. They don't have a fan base. Why am I saying this to you? I'm saying this to you because on the eve of your rebellion, on the fighting for your tuition, you're fighting it wrong. You really are. I'm not saying you're not right in purpose, because you are, because it's obscene to have the tuition go out. It's obscene to build a football stadium without having public money or private money funding this thing. It's obscene to ask you to do what doesn't benefit you. That wasn't the deal you made when you came here. Your deal you made, you're going to go to school. And they're going to educate you. And for every fine varsity, your part of your tuition to pay his salary. He deserves a salary because for 1 hour a day, he's teaching you. There is no teaching being done to you. Now, is that a good relaxation and leisure? Yes. I'm not against it. I'm all for kids playing. I'm all for sports. I'm all for those kids playing being understood better also. You see, unlike some others you may have heard, I'm for the athletes who are out there in an inordinate amount of time that aren't going to get the same benefits as you academically. Now, some of them will. The young man over at Stanford is certainly going to. I'm not saying it does not happen. I'm speaking for the majority. The majority of the athletes do not get their degrees. The majority of the athletes get degrees or flaw. There's one famous university. I only did this because we have a friend that does this sort of stuff. And you all know this term, clustering. Clustering is a sacrilege in the university system. That's where they put you, the athletes, into a course that almost no other athlete in the whole university takes. They go there and they take these courses that are meaningless. But they get an A or a B, so they're able to go to the next year, the next semester. But what happens at the end of their 4 years? That course has no recognition, and you certainly can't do anything with it. One of these courses, one of the great universities in America, and if you listen to them, they'll tell you, and in fact, I looked at the book, they're rated pretty high. They have housing as their major. A real estate agent, not being mean to real estate, has more education than a housing major. If you ever looked at the curriculum in that university for a housing major, it's almost sinful to put it in print, where you can actually have a witness to this fraud being perpetrated on these kids. Now, when I was a child, when David was a child, we used to call it basket weaving, or we'd take some inane course, we'd take phys ed 17 times. But you knew what you were doing. You really did. But now you have a system that perpetrates this myth of academics and education and monetary growth because they control it. They need you to play football or basketball. They need to sell the stadiums. They need to have their alumnus. I watched, one of the reasons why we have bowl games today is because if your school goes to a bowl game, your financial growth will grow because alumni will be proud and they'll make a donation. As if to say, before this uncommon growth in the last 20 years of college sports, that none of the benefactors, I know Phil Knight helped build Stanford long before Stanford won a goddamn football game and certainly a basketball game. I know that if you have people, because what the privilege system was, and reading the Ivy League flourished is why. They had great scholars, great individuals that got educated and made a lot of money, and by pride by itself, you give back. That's what that is. It's not because you won a football game. If that was the reason, Harvard or Yale would not ever get a penny. They don't win football games. So that's another myth that's perpetrated when they say, I listened to this guy, and he was amazing, he was a pretty recognizable person the other night. He said, well, that's not true. He said, we know if we go to a bowl game, our tuition, we get more guys coming to school, and we can do this, we can do that. Well, that holds no logic, because that isn't what you should be talking about. See, I look at it from both sides of the cup. Since I was an athlete and I'm fighting for these kids, I look at it, that shouldn't be the reason. You should really want me to get a lot because your academics are great, because your graduates are going on to great positions in management. You're going to be a doctor somewhere. You're going to save the world. You're going to do something positive, not end up in the NFL and NBA. I've never in my life, as much as I love it, and I'm for all those kids, I'm a proponent of all those kids being able to work at whatever age they can, I've never said that's why they should go to school. That isn't why. We're all here today because you and your parents and people before you all wanted you to be educated. So you can go out in the world, earn a living, and do good. Stick on Cal. Stick on why we're here. The reason that you're given, and Sonny Vaccaro is not going to change the world. And in fact, what will happen, you'll leave here today, you'll go march in line, and that's good. You're your kids, and you should do that. I want you to take one thing out of this. I want you to take one thing, maybe one thing only. When we started this 5 years ago, as God is my judge, well, I walked away from working with Reebok. I worked for all three companies. I've been well compensated. I've had a good living. I walked away with 2 years ago on a contract that was good. From all my marketing stuff for the company I was working with, personal pay, ability to travel the world, do all that stuff, okay? And I said to myself, this isn't the way I'm going out. So we made a pact that we were going to travel, and I prayed to God that some school would call me. I wanted to talk to kids. No football or basketball player. I've never ever talked to a football or basketball team. Never. Don't want to. Not that I didn't want to. I probably know all the kids, and it wouldn't be good. I don't want to. I went, and it was Harvard that I said this. 3rd or 4th schools went to, and I said, the reason I'm here, guys, is not to talk about Michael Jordan. I'm hoping that one of you people in this class tonight, because you certainly have been put in a position to make change. Because I'm assuming you're at Cal. I mean, God, Cal's a lot better than what the hell your football or basketball record is. I would think that. So I'm assuming you're all bright. I want it to be that. And I would say the same thing if you were at Appalachian State. If you're in college, you want to learn something. So I asked these kids, please take my message. I never dreamed what would happen. What would happen, Pam and I continued. And in one of those stops along the way, and I still think it's Howard University in Washington, someone heard me. And someone called me. And it evolved into, it's going to be a landmark case, the O'Bannon case. The O'Bannon case resonates with the world because of two things. First of all, Eddie O'Bannon is the next player, a Player of the Year in Pac-10, played for UCLA when they won the national championship, and they continually sold his image, they being the NCAA. And I thought that was wrong. I did not believe that anybody can control your image for your lifetime. So I started speaking about this and about the right to work. I was very close to a kid named Brandon Jennings who had to go to Europe to earn a living because they red flagged him. They didn't say flunked, they red flagged him, which would have held him almost out of his freshman year. He said, screw that, can you get me in Europe? So that was a right to work thing. Everything is down to that with me on why I spoke to these kids. Then I start witnessing this evolution of the mindset. There was a firm that wanted to represent Huntsville that I, in my wildest dreams, never believed that I would ever even know. In fact, I didn't think this would be going this far. Michael Houseville, Google his name, find the law firm. He's the top. Two of his main cases, he represented the apartheid, against apartheid in South Africa with the American companies selling him products while there was apartheid, and he's suing the American companies that sold materials to them. Then also he represented the Holocaust victims in Nazi Germany, against the Swiss banks. So there's a man there that, my God, obviously he's bright, and we're going to fight. So we started this case. What's in court now? You ought to start following, but it's going to resonate. It's going to resonate on the likes of your schools and other schools. Why do I say it in relation to you guys and what you're doing today? One guy stood up, Eddie O'Bannon. In the past, Dave knows about it, we've had, all kind of individuals through life have stood up. And that individual probably had the least to gain of anybody because their career was over, almost over, things had happened, they got injured. Injuries are the saddest part of football than some of the things. Injuries are sickening. For me to go around the country now and talk to groups of individuals like you and be on panels with other people, as Andrew and I were last week, I listened to this thing on concussions and on injuries of football players. It's inhumane for people to think that a football player's body is the same as anybody else's when you get that beating. But it's done under the auspices of everybody, not just the NFL. Happened in high school, happens in college. But we were able to prolong that because it didn't become public. We were also able to prolong the image thing because it wasn't public till Bannon stood up. What your opposition always will do, what they will try to do, is get the last word at the press conference. You can't allow that. And that's where I came in. I am a different individual. I'm wired differently. I certainly don't have the academic capacity or things that you kids are capable of doing. The upbringing you've had to prepare you for what you're doing at Cal and what you're doing in life. I can't be a doctor, but I can believe what I want to believe, and I talk well. And I'm good. And people don't, and kids will listen because I won't lie. So I'm saying to you, when you walk out of here today, you walk out of here and say, you know what? This will go down. Those police guys are going to stop you. They're going to happen. You'll get an article, and then someone will say you're all a bunch of assholes or whatever, and it'll go away. Everything always goes away. There's a famous thing, my favorite play, and Pam and I love play, is Lady Rawls. You know, A Tale of Two Cities. And I use this all the time. The first man over the wall always gets shot. He always gets hurt. You know, what you got to say to yourself, okay, I'm going over. I'm going to take my buddies with me, and we're going to go over, and we're going to make a stand. Make a stand here. If you believe what you're saying, then make a stand. Then talk about it. Get other people to talk about it. Don't just acquiesce and allow them to win the press conference, because they got PR firms. They spend millions of dollars beating your butts up. But if you have the right message and the right time, and you start with 2 to 3 people, then you'll get across. Then you'll get a crowd. The case I was telling you about now, we can't get enough plaintiffs. We don't need any more, because in a class action, you only need a few to begin with. When we get to court, the names that are going to come forward are unbelievable. Because under our class action, it's a class, anybody who played in college sports, and you were televised or monetized by other corporate entities like EA Sports and IMG College and NFL film, NCAA films, they owe you. If you're a commercial actress, that's called a residual. You do a TV show, they're paying you as long as they're showing that show. They don't own you when you're dead, and they certainly don't own you when you leave. Let me just tell you something. They shouldn't own you today. You paid tuition. You came into their school, they took you. You have a right to demand what you think is right. If you don't, then you lose, because no one else is going to fight for you. Do you really think what happens in the world we live in is apathy? Apathy is the death of mankind. No one gives a damn that the climate's changing, that the mountains are shrinking, that the animals are killing each other off. I'm not here for any kind of sentimental story. I'll stay on Cal. Do you think people at Stanford really give a damn what you guys are thinking? It's a whole different world. It's privately funded. They get these people to do it whether they don't or not, whether all of the luck comes or all of the luck doesn't come. Notre Dame. You ever looked around and seen who stands alone? You're a state university. You're like Cal Irvine. Does Cal Irvine need a stadium? I don't know. They might. Then you all should build a stadium. That's what they say is good for you. I want to tell you today, and I'm probably out of time, I'd like to answer some questions. I'm going to just tell you, if I say anything to you, I live this life. I didn't tell you the first 5 minutes. I've been called every name under the book. Maybe some of them with good reason, I have no idea. And I stood there and I had to take it, because it was no good fighting back if I didn't have an audience. One of the best things other than marry Pam in my life was I made this venture out into the academic world. I'll say something to you, not for any, I don't need any admiration from the whatever. When we did this, we didn't take a penny. Every school we went to, we paid our own transportation, got our own housing, never did a fee. Not that I'm a zillionaire, we have a couple dollars, yes. It's our 31st trip now. 31 universities across the country. And we get more and more and more. And how does it happen? How does it happen? You just stand up and say, I'm not going to let them get the last word at the press conference. So every time the NCAA something, everybody in America will call me, Sonny, what do you think? And I do, whether at least my opinion is voiced. I want your opinion. I want you to leave here, go study, pass your test, but don't back down. And someone's got to be a leader. Someone's got to take hold of the other ones. someone's got to be the first over the fence. Thank you. I'll take any question you want. Appreciate it. Somebody asked anything. What were the nicknames you were called? A lot of them. Very racial, very intimidating. I was brought up in an era where nicknames to your heritage were all too common to demeaning. So I went that route a long time ago. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not very bright, but I wonder what took you so long.
Exactly. That's a good question. I never changed. See, that's a good question. What you didn't know, and that's the right answer, what none of you knew, I've been saying these things for a long time. In fact, I've got documentation. I went to Nightline in 1998 with Ted Koppel, Jim Brown, Chris Webber, and the president of the NCAA. I've written articles. In 1983, I was quoted on CBS, The Money Machine. So I said this. What happened was, until I became Sonny Vaccaro, the individual, and I broke out on my own, people covered me. They didn't. I was always a rebel. So your question is good. I've said this all my life. All my life. Everything I've ever done, just so you understand this, I never got a penny from the athlete. I was paid by the company that hired me. I did three very famous things in the world I live in. We never charged admission, never charged the kid anything. This is not to put a halo, but your question, until I left, and that was part of the reason I left, with 2 years to go. It was a calculated risk. I told her, I don't think I'm going to get traction unless I divorce myself from earning money and not working for Reebok or Adidas or Nike. So that, I totally walked away. So now what are you going to say about me now? No one's paying me. I'm not here on your dime, but I'm going to look you in the eye and disagree with you. Beat me up. Call me those names. Okay.
No, I'm puzzled.
No, I'm not blaming, I'm saying my opposition. Go ahead, you're puzzled.
No, you were doing this during the heyday of the consumer movement.
Yes, I was.
And Nader and all that was going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know it very well.
He didn't influence you.
Well, you know, let me tell you why, okay? And I don't want to get personal with her. In some of his thinkings, he's also opposed to free thinking on what you can and can't do. We did business. That's what Nike did. We did business in a legal manner. Okay? Ralph's opinion of that time, and basically there was no opinions because we did business as usual until the lawsuits hit. None of this became public. The individual standing up waving the flag and going over. So I understand him very, very well. I understood what he stood for, and I understand he gave his life for it. He was the first over his wall in the world he lived. But what happened to Ralph and others, there wasn't a Sonny Vaccaro or Kurt Flood or Jim Brown or anybody else that stood up or Dave Megacy. Other people wrote books and did things. They never got past their first printing. They never, and we didn't have the internet. I mean, this is the only one, you know, and whatever here. Everywhere I go, there'll be TV cameras, and they'll come up and ask me. I spoke last week at a law symposium in Santa Clara, and we had the most dignified board up there. I had like 5 requests for media on the evening news shipped across the country. I get from CBS News. Everybody was calling. I mean, the article Taylor Branch just wrote, you know, in Atlantic Monthly. All you kids should read that. And you know what? You know what's interesting there is Taylor Branch is an academic. He's a brilliant writer. He thought the other side. So what this case has done, what we have done, and what hopefully I will part in, is we started to get you guys thinking about what us guys are saying. Taylor wouldn't have covered this before. By his own admission, he never had a desire to. And I can say, it's not out yet, but Pam and I have been back east. In the next couple of months, you're going to get articles like that for the defense, which is us, I guess, for me or for the cause, from other writers that have no connection with college sports. What has happened was the American public is starting to understand there's a divide here. See, the key to this is amateurism is not a word. It's a trick. The rule book of the NCAA is a rule book that only brings them rewards. It's all for the NCAA. It's not nothing about the athletes. They write, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't. Everything in there is 20,000 pages of you can't do it, you being the athlete. And they divide away. I want to ask you a question. What the hell does the president of the NCAA do? I've said that before. Nothing. Nothing at all. I defy you to go to your president. Ask him what he does. You know, they told me last week, they told me, well, they made schedules for the lacrosse team, and shit, I did that, you know, all my life, but the tournaments we used to run. She didn't get paid $1 million. My point is, they have no authority to do anything other than divide up your money. They can't stop what Cal's going to do. Your president does that. Your president is the one you got to convince. So I hope I answered it, because now it's getting traction. Yes, sir.
Sonny, I want to remind the class that the NCAA works for the university presidents. The university presidents make the ultimate decision. They act intelligently, they're clever, they take care of themselves. But the ultimate decision of any NCAA decision is okayed by the president. They have a legislative council. So I know the NCAA is the way you want to express yourself. But do you agree with me? It's the president.
I just said, go to your president. I didn't know to say go to the NCAA. And he works for him like David Stern works for, you know, the basketball team.
The owners, yeah.
You know, they all work for that. He's no more than David Stern. Don't you understand?
Right.
And your president. When I just said that, go to your president. Who are you going to go to? The football player, the coach that they're giving $5 million? He ain't going to agree with you. And you know what? He has a right to take that money. Your president gave it to him. When I told you that Miami took our money in '89, they knew what they were doing. So they know what they're doing. You can't stop them, man. Yeah, go ahead. I know you. Go ahead.
Well, before we go there, I just want to say something to the guests who don't know our little guidelines. So, Margaret, you want to say it?
I just said, let's let students
Sure.
ask the questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So are we...
Oh, please, please.
Let's start with that, and if there's time, we'll go back to the other.
Please. Go ahead, young man. I want them to, yes.
So why do you think that presidents are, if they know, if they're conscious of what they're doing, do you really think that what's driving them to continue this is just to take care of themselves?
No, I don't think presidents, I don't think any of these people are bad people. The president accounts to the board. The board accounts to the alumni. You have to understand, there's always somebody above you. They're like the Wizard of Oz. That's what it is. They want to do what's best for Cal. They want to do what's best for, you know, Irvine. But they're beholden to somebody. But on these matters, technically, they're not going to identify the boosters or the donors. They're not public information. I noticed that you had the Hewlett-Packard Hall here. You know, we have a change in Hewlett-Packard. That lady left, somebody else came in, and whoever, you know, it's still there. You know, my point is, you want money. That's how universities survive, on their benefactors, on their donors. That's wonderful, because that, in the truest form, when Andrew Carnegie and all these guys started all this stuff, when Stanford started, you know, all this stuff, the education was for the benefit of the young people in the world. That's the way it should be. See, and let me just say this. Phil Knight and I, he fired my butt, just so we understand that. But you know what, I respect him. But you know what, in my world, the Phil Knights of the world are okay. I know where he stands. He's made a $100 million pledge to build a basketball facility in Oregon. Well, who the hell is going to go to Oregon and watch unless you build him $100 million? And Phil did that. Phil, I mean, that's okay. I don't mind that. Why? It didn't come out of your pocket. Then I get mad when it comes out of your pocket, your parents' pockets. If some private guy or some donor wants to do it and he wants to put his name on this building, let him do it. I'm all for that. I'm against you, your parents, who you may not go to a football game all year. And what are you paying, you know, $25, $100? Whatever it is irrelevant. The point is you're being made to pay it. No one should make you do anything. In public school especially. Please.
About the case, what is your role exactly?
I'm an unpaid advisor.
So what is that?
I don't get any money, God willingly, when we win. I want justice to be heard for these kids. And I'm proud of it. And we've given the last 5 years for this. And I've given the previous, you know, a long time for this. I think the athletes are the most abused kids on campus, even though you may look at them differently, because not only they're abused mentally also. And I really fear for that, because for every Kobe Bryant you see that didn't go to school and makes millions, and every kid you see, there are others that don't. So the part of the story, they're not all pro football and basketball, is very true. So the least they should get at Cal, or any school, is an education. I'm never against education. I went on a 4-year scholarship and I never played it down. I got hurt my freshman year. A small school in Ohio liked me. 1958, just so we put this in the right place. Sonny Vaccaro would not have had a chance. They took the damn scholarship away from these kids. I would not have existed. I wouldn't be here. They took a 4-year scholarship away and made it 1 at their discretion. It's a merit scholarship. It's not a merit scholarship. It's not a merit scholarship at all. They weren't brought there with merit. They were brought there to play football, basketball. That's a misnomer. It's not a merit scholarship, and people in education know that. You were given a football scholarship and you play football. It's not merit. If you can't play next year, you're gone. They can take it away from you.
Maybe they don't know that it's a 1-year scholarship.
Do you know that they're 1 year at a time in college athletics? Okay. Good, young man. You're good. Good.
Is there anything else that you guys want to ask? I know Axel had some questions that you were supposed to be passing on. Is there somebody doing that?
They were really, really, really long questions. I tried to remember
This
them.
is your class. So
Yeah.
do what you can.
So it's like reforming, like,
That's okay.
yeah. I can pull them up on my phone, though. I have the email, so.
Why don't you ask yours? And
Okay. Please do that.
So it's my understanding that Cal is a Nike school, and I'm wondering, as an insider, can you give us a preface of what that means? What did Cal?
Young lady, are you from Cal? Are you? Well, I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm gonna show you what he's asked me. I just want.
Are you a writer? Are you a writer?
Yeah.
No, you should identify yourself.
Yes. I'm from California Magazine, which is the alumni
Okay.
magazine here.
That's okay. And you from the university in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
I had a feeling you were. Okay, and that's good. No, this is not negative because you're going to be put there with everyone else. Yes. Did you notice last year's game or the year before when Cal changed their colors to wear LeBron colors and because Nike had a new shoe color and a new design? So what you basically do, not just Cal, but you did it. You know you did it. All of them do it. Not just Cal. Everybody changed. Oregon changes their colors every game. Go watch a football game this week. They'll have green and gold, and green and purple, and green and whatever. And Phil will put a different helmet on you. So their obligation is this, and take this back, please. When you sign a contract, I wrote the contract. You know exactly what it says, unless they change the style. When you sign a contract, you have a written agreement that since Nike has sponsored you, other than paying you and giving you all your equipment, which is a good deal for universities, it's really a good deal. The only other part of the deal that you lawyers should tell me about is, do you know that Adidas can't go into a bookstore and sell their books or sell their shoes, and you know Reebok can? Well, if you're a Nike school, you're a Nike school. Your bookstore sells Nike sweatshirts, Nike shoes. So going back to free enterprise and going back to being a monopoly, I bought the University of California. I told you that 20 minutes ago. When the University of Miami asked me to A9, I called Phil Knight because every time I called him, I said, we made it. Why? We own Miami. What do you mean we own Miami? We're going to give all their team shoes. He said, what are we going to do? Track and field. I said, that's okay. Everything at the University of Miami is now Nikeized. On the billboards, the track and field, the swimming pool, the locker room, the bookstore. I don't know what your numbers are in your bookstore, but I'll tell you what. If you had a Kevin Durant or a Cam Newton, you sold a hell of a lot of jerseys with their numbers on it. It's a gold mine. It's a good thing. We get 50 cents, you get 50 cents. It's a big, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's free enterprise. I'm condoning it. I'm saying you're allowed to do it. I'm just saying I wish the hell the kid with the number on his back would have got a part of that.
Axel, who's not here today, I wanted to ask you, do you regret the way that your actions set off the general trend towards commercializing college sports?
Absolutely not. I'm so proud of my life. No, I don't. I don't. If I would have any regret, tell Axel, then I would have been stopped. I was a partner with what I considered upstanding individuals, the universities and the coaches. And Mr. Knight, and you have to understand something, there's a little misread here. I didn't own Nike. Phil Knight did. So every deal I did, Phil wrote the check. Phil was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. They just honored him last year in San Diego in an NCAA function for being a man. And T-Bone Pickens, another one of my idols. I'm saying to you, there's nothing wrong with that. Commercialism is good. It's good. No, I'm proud of everything I've ever done.
what brought Rome down.
Pardon me? What brought Rome down? Commercialism? No, that stupid man with the fiddle brought it down.
Are there more comments over there?
There were 4, but this one would take me a while to read out loud, so I don't know if I should just show it.
This is your class?
Read it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In the frontline interview, you said that making the analogy between you and a drug dealer is a bad analogy because drugs are illegal. There is nothing illegal in the way that you did business, and it was the university's duty to protect the kids. Or not to sell their soul, as you put it. And if, in fact, the issue of the illegality is taken out of the question and one focuses on the social and health consequences of drug use, or in this case of endorsement, one can look at a perspective where the blame is more distributed. While the universities and the NCAA should be receiving plenty of criticism for protecting athletes' integrity, you are the one who offered a lucrative and tempting reward for not doing so. Do you recognize the importance of your role in this situation? Do you realize that you were in a powerful position to do it differently in a way which would be less exploitative to the players?
I understand what he's saying, and I understand what he said immediately. No, I wasn't Adam to that guy's Eve. That's not true. I didn't do that. What I said, that's a very good question, it's long, but it's good. What he fails to understand, if you would use that analysis on anything in life, we wouldn't go past the Stone Age. That's how you progress. And when I came to in 77, that's what it was. Go ahead, your turn, young lady. That would hit you. Go ahead. How can we have gotten past the Stone Age if we wouldn't have progressed in a commercial market?
How did we get rid of slavery?
How did we get rid of slavery?
That was good for the commercial market.
That wasn't a commercial market. That was enslavement by physicality. It wasn't nothing to do with commercial market. They went over and captured the African Americans, the black people, put them on boats, brought them here, and told them they had to work. You're so wrong on that. I beg to differ with you. Commercialism with slavery? That's a ridiculous statement.
Are athletes slaves?
Athletes in the connotation of a slave is not. Athletes are not treated correctly. They're not slaves. They're just not treated equally to other students in the school. They're not slaves, though. They're not slaves. They have the wherewithal to leave and go somewhere else if they want to.
So buying and selling athletes, that's not the same as buying and selling slaves.
They're not buying and selling athletes. What you're doing is you're restricting athletes from earning what they can earn. You're wrong. Go ahead, keep getting. You can argue with me, and you may be right. But go ahead. This is what I like. When you ask me the question before, go ahead. Tell me. Where am I wrong?
Well, how do you feel about monopolies?
I think it's cruel, I think it's bad, and I think the world will stop.
So the Nike and Coca-Cola, et cetera, having monopolies at Berkeley, is that bad or good? They're being accepted at Berkeley. They didn't force themselves on. They couldn't get into Berkeley unless Berkeley took them. Nike's not a monopoly. Auburn's with Under Armour. They have the freedom of choice to pick and choose who they want to sell in their bookstores.
Do you think that through the court cases, the students are going to be able to get the proper compensation for what's been done to them, I guess?
I have no idea how they can prevent the lawsuit for abandonment going forward, because they've already sold their images. They've made their billions of dollars off of their images. Otherwise, Eddie O'Bannon can never play at UCLA again, but they're still selling the picture of the 1996 NCAA final. So they've made money off of that.
Okay.
We have time for one last question, and it will be Professor.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one question. What do you see as given the players that you've described, that's to say the student athletes, the NCAA, the commercial interests, what do you see as the best possible solution given where we're standing right now?
Thank you for asking that. I think there are some possible solutions. In the world I live in, it's a small, little world. I'm hoping people like you will understand it. Take this in how I'm trying to say it, and hopefully you students follow me. I believe once the O'Bannon case goes full circle and we win it, okay, then the NCAA, through your presidents, and your presidents can get out of this very easily, there has to be a system where these kids can get paid, not when the game is over. It's not the Army paymasters. They're not going to line up and get paid. But there's got to be some group of individuals. Hypothetically, I'll just give you a name that sticks in my mind, okay? Bill Bradley, okay? A Bill Bradley type individual, whether Republican or Democrat, get past that. Just an individual, whiz or white, okay? That could be on a committee, that could go to the bargaining table. The next time they sell the NCAA contract to CBS or ESPN, the students and the athletes together can be a part of the monies being spread out. So maybe this group of individuals gets X percent, and the judge and the court say they have a right to negotiate. Now, we can't give them money, but I'll tell you when you can give it to them. Okay? You can give it to them when they leave your school, even if they don't go pro. 1 year, 1 week, 4 years. There's got to be, it's almost like a reward for you going and a compensation. What has happened in the world you live in, and what your president, not a Cal, there's not that much, but it does happen. The catchphrase today is the cheating and all that. The cheating in colleges and the booster guys and all that. You force, by the very nature of not being able to give these kids, the cost of living thing with a scholarship is something they should be ashamed of. They should have done that 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I mean. You can't retroactive repay the kids that had to get through. What happens in a community default of a monetary reimbursement is they'll do outrageous things. Otherwise, that's where the outsiders come in. That's why the illegal payments come in. That's why they'll start with, I'll buy you a plane ticket to go see your son play. I'll get you a new dress to make sure you go to the game tonight and you're dressed nice. Oh, you're nice, Mr. Sonny. I'll take that money from you. You don't owe me anything until it's time to what? Everyone's got to pay. The guy at Miami, Donna Shiella, ought to be the most ashamed human being in the world. She worked in Clinton's White House. She was the president of the University of Miami. And the only reason that Neville Shapiro got caught was because he got sent to prison on something else. Because Donna, I believe in my mind, and you can all quote me, thought that he was going to give him $500 million. They didn't stop that man when he had a fight in the room, the press box room, with the academic advisor and the compliance officer, and he called them all down and blamed them for having good grades because they couldn't get good players. They took his money to build a cafeteria or something for the athletes. See, the difference between donors who sit back and want their name on it and men who give to individuals for their own private reasons are two different things. This is for the growth, the Packard building is for the growth of whatever. The ninth building, when these guys, all the student body benefits. When you have private entities and booster guys who give the guys $50 and $100 in airplane tickets, then you have corruptness. That's what you haven't been able to stop. I'm sorry.
So,
I apologize. I just wanted to answer. I think there's a distinctly difference between that, but I apologize. And I respect what your brother has done his whole life. So but I wanted to tell you that in front of everybody. But I don't think you're the connection.
So we have to stop there, but thank you so much, Sonny.